Hey! Today I'm going to show you how I pack my base rig for slider off jumps. This is for the low stuff, and the parachute opens immediately because there is no slider, no piece of fabric that is slowing the opening. So let's get to it. Here we go. So first things first, I think it's important to understand what type of gear I'm working with. This is squirrel gear, this is the Crux 2, and I have my closing loop on the faceplate instead of the top. This is also a squirrel parachute. This is the Hey Duke 2, and it is awesome. Alrighty, so I'm gonna put a weight down, and we're gonna start with line control checks. So first things first, I wanna make sure that everything looks good on the container. It's laying flat, right? And there's no twists in the risers. And I'm gonna just bring these up and take all three of these like I would a normal skydive canopy, get right to the ends, and give it a nice shake, bring it right to the end. I do a second control check by going through each side of the lines. And essentially what I'm looking for, because my brake lines are not attached to the guide rings, is that they have full clearance, like we can see. So I can see my front riser is free and clear from my back riser, and my control lines are free and clear. And we're gonna do the same thing over here. Front riser, free and clear. And the back riser with the control lines free and clear from each other. So there are no twists. All right, next up, we are going to put it into an orientation to start packing. I do a flat pack method, but I will link Squirrel's YouTube video on how to pack a base rig. So if you do pro pack, you can do it that way. But for me, flat packing is the best way. Before we get started, I am gonna just make sure that my bridle is connected to my pilot chute, and every pilot chute is different, right? This is a 42-inch pilot chute made for certain types of jumps. So when you are packing, you wanna understand, what type of jump am I doing? What am I packing for? All right, next up, I'm going to separate my control lines from my back lines. Now it's laid out super nice, and I can get started on my flat packing. So what I'm doing here, I'm just making sure I have all the cells, and we'll go through each of those as we start our flaking process. So I use clamps. Everybody's different. You don't have to use clamps. Personally, I find clamps are very helpful. First clamp that I'm going to add is on the risers. And I'm going to put them right at the top. As you can see, they are all equal, so the lines, when they're tensioned out, are all going to be equal to the end. So for the flat packing method, I'm going to start with our first front lines. These are the A's. Now, squirrel parachutes have tabs on them, as you can see. And there are 7. This is a 7-cell canopy, right? So I'm going to just go with each tab. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm looking to do that for the next 3 times that I make my clamps. And now I'm clamped in. I'm going to move to the next ones. And you can see some of that fabric gets caught underneath, so I want to make sure I always have the bottom one first and that it is straight to the rig. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this feels really nice, right? It keeps everything very, very clean. And I'm just moving down the line. Okay, 7. And now that I have my 3 top skin cell clamps in, I'm gonna go to the nose. So you can kind of see what I'm doing, moving everything over and getting my nose lines straight to the rig. And from here, I'm now going to flip the nose and start counting from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, great news, right? Because we want the nose to be the first thing that inflates. And so I'm gonna put this clamp right at the end where those lines come, as you can see right here. And we're gonna start our flake. So we're gonna count 1, 2, 3, and we're gonna fold that all the way under. And then our 4th one, this is our center cell. We're gonna put that right in the middle. And then 1, 2, 3 for our right side. Now I'm gonna get my foot and I'm gonna start my flaking process here. So I take each one with the clamp. I'm holding the fabric in front because if you hold the clamp, sometimes it can come off. And I'm gonna get the 3 right-hand side ones, and this is a little method movement as I flip, boom, 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 and I pull the center, and then just do a quick kind of like that movement. And I'm gonna keep doing that to put everything on top of each other. Right? Okay, pull the middle, flop, flip and flop. All right, the last one. Cool. And we always wanna keep the lines tensioned, right? So if we ever see them get untensioned, we pull from the canopy side. And I'll get to that in a moment. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean these folds up. So I'm going back to the folds again, just doing a nice flake out for each one. I'm gonna flip this middle center cell over. Now I'm gonna work on this left side. Okay, so I'm gonna flip everything over and doing the same thing. As you can see, it then lays it out really nice, right? So we're getting that nice rectangle curve. Okay, now with the back, we're gonna grab everything up to the middle, right? And then we're gonna flip half of it onto its side. So what we should be able to see now is I have left control lines and right control lines. And now you can see everything is starting to come together a little bit. So what we're gonna do now is the inside flake. Now, what I like to do is a 2-step process. And I start with just a very quick flake both sides onto each other. So what I do is I grab each line set, right, the C's, and I'm just moving my hand down to the B's and the A's. I'm not done yet, but again, I'm getting everything just flaked onto its relative side. Okay. And as you can see, it's a little bit untensioned. So I'm gonna come here and I'm just gonna put some tension into the lines. Again, I'm grabbing fabric in front of the tip of the clamp. Nice, 1. And I start from the bottom or the front and make my way up. 2, do a little tug on the center. 3, 4, and now you can see it gets nice and tensioned again. All right, now we're gonna get into the flakes again. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my foot on top and I'm just gonna run my fingers up to the nose area, right? The top nose area. And the movement I usually do is kind of like this, right? So I go in between the cells, and what I'm doing is putting all that fabric into just a nice quartered sheet. I'm gonna move my way up to the bees, right? So the bees, I lay them on top, get my foot down, bring my fingers up, right? And then take that fabric, move it down. The C's, lay it on top, foot down, bring the hand up, lay that fabric down, swipe. And then the D's, these are the last ones. I'm gonna just put these right on top. Boom. Okay. So now what we have is a really nicely seated flake on one side. And we're going to repeat on the other. Okay, so you should see, right, everything is now stacked on top of each other, and it looks really, really clean. Cool. All right, now we're gonna go to our brakes, and we're gonna set those. So I'm gonna bring these up. I'm gonna do a little whoa, just like that. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm giving myself more slack on the brakes, because depending, again, what type of jump we're doing, we're either going to be setting ourselves in shallow, deep, or super deep brakes. Now, the slider is off, so we're gonna do deep brakes today. So I go one by one. I'm gonna take my left brake, and I'm just gonna untwist any potential twists in the lines. And essentially what I'm trying to do is mitigate tension knots. So what I like to do is I like to take the two ends, there's 4 total, and I split them in half, and the reason I do that is because you can see it comes to right here, right? So from here, now I'm just gonna run my finger up, right? Get any twists out, and I'm gonna start to set this. Now, for slider off, line, ring, toggle, right? Don't forget it. So, using the deep brakes, I'm going to put them in the line, right? Little eye drop. Then the eye drop goes through the ring, and the toggle goes through the line, and you stow, right? This is extremely important. So I'm gonna put that right on the Velcro, give it a tug, make sure it's nice and taut. And then I'm going to set the excess into the Velcro pouch. And repeat, right? So, undo, boom. I'm gonna come up here, split the brake lines up, and we're gonna start to pull down, undo any twists, and bring this guy over, right? And again, deep brakes. So we're gonna do deep into the line. The line goes through the ring, and the toggle goes through the line, right? And then we stow it. Okay, Velcro is seated, and we're gonna get the excess placed in the pouch. Cool. So now our brakes are set. Looks good. We know they're both in deep setting, and we can now start to organize our excess tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one side, grab all of this extra tail, and flip it on over. Okay, so I'm going to flip it to one side. I'm just going to flatten it out a little bit. Now, what we're going to do with the tail here, we're going to start to set it on top of each other. So I start with my first one coming from the stabilizer and place it down right on top along its line set. And what I like to do is put my right hand down and use my left hand to start placing each one on top. And you'll see, right, I'm gonna make sure everything looks good with the stitching is right on top of each other. I'm just doing half cuts in between each one. Okay. So half cuts, take out the excess, fold it down, press it down. Yep. As we get closer to the tail pocket, you're going to notice that color is going to change. It's okay. Remember, we're still at the seam, placing everything on top of each other. For this tail pocket, it's just going to go halfway, as you can see, because we want the tail pocket in the middle. And now we have one side cleanly flaked. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring the tail pocket over, and we're going to start on the other side. And very similarly, we're going to place everything on top, give it a nice clean smush. And symmetry is always important here, right? Notice how everything I'm doing is exactly the same on both sides. So from the stabilizer all the way down to the first piece that's connecting the control line, it's right on top of this left line set. I'm going to do halfway and start bringing it down. Right? Super nice, super pretty. Okay. Oh yeah. Right on top with the seam going all the way up. We're going to do that last fold. Beauty. Now, we're going to do a quick piece there. Okay, cool. So because we are slider off, we're going to set what's called the tailgate. So we're going to go start from here. We're going to grab the control lines and the white, at least on squirrel parachutes, you have a white piece going on your front risers. And we're going to bring those above all of the black lines. Okay, and we're going to place it inside the tailgate. Okay, notice how it's on top. There are some black ones that do go through this front line here. That is okay. What you're looking for is that these are all on top. Now, the reason we do this is because when the parachute opens, we want the control lines to be the last things that snap out and don't get tangled with the front black lines. So from there, we're going to double stow it with the rubber band, and that's set. Okay, cool. So that's looking pretty good. Again, we're going to make sure we have tension in the lines, right? Pull the tension, pull the tension. It should all be looking nice and tensioned and straight. So that looks pretty solid. Now we're going to go and start to coil these up. So we're going to release these clamps now. So we're going to release the first one, release the second one, third, and fourth, and we will use these in a moment here. So now we're going to do our reduction folds, and essentially what we're doing is we're now folding this into a place where it's going to be able to go into the container. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the tail pocket, and what I like to do is I take these first two pieces, I'm just going to shimmy them about halfway down, and then the tail pocket I'm going to shimmy to the final, so it just goes right over the bottom of the whole parachute system. I'm going to get my knees right on top of the tail pocket, and I'm going to start these reduction folds. So the first thing we're going to do is reduce the tail. Now for me, I like to do an inward fold, essentially an inward roll, as you can see. The symmetry, doing it both exact same on both sides. Then I take this outer skin and wrap it around the tail. And I'm gonna give a nice lay on it. And what we're doing is we're just reducing, getting it into a small enough space that we're gonna be able to pack this into that rig. Okay, sweet. We still have symmetry, and we're ready to now reduce the main parachute fabric. So I'm gonna start with one clamp. I'm gonna take this left side and I'm just gonna count 3. I wanna make sure I have 3 pieces of fabric. I'm gonna come to the bottom here and I'm gonna do a fold, okay? So I fold halfway. Again, symmetry is the important part here. And I'm gonna take this clamp and I'm just gonna put it right on top there, okay? It's gonna leave that fabric nice and tight. We're gonna move right on to the right side. I'm gonna do 3, just counting 3 again, and then bring my hand and do a fold, right? I'm gonna take that clamp, and I like to put the clamp about right at the top of where the nose cells are coming out. But look at that, nice and symmetrical. This is exactly what we want. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to do a quick fold on the main right here. And the reason we do this is for opening characteristics. Some people don't, some people do. Personally, I like to, and I've had good openings so far, you know, knock on wood. And that's just a nice 90 degree. I'm gonna do it to the other side. Remember, symmetry, symmetry, symmetry. Okay, and this is looking pretty nice. So now we're going to stow the lines. So I'm gonna get right on top here. I'm gonna sit down on top of the parachute. I'm gonna lay back on it. I'm gonna look at the sky. I'm gonna look at the ocean. And I'm gonna realize how fun this is. I'm gonna open up the tail pocket and get that ready to start stowing all the lines. Okay, I'm gonna make sure my main rubber band is ready to go. And what I like to do is I get my left lines, the black ones, into the hand. I put the white ones on top and the right black ones below again. Essentially, remember, I wanna keep these separated as much as possible so that this never gets a malfunction. All right. We're gonna do our first stow. So I'm gonna put a nice bite here, and then we are going to double stow per Squirrel's instructions. And with that bite, I'm then going to put it inside this little tail pocket piece. Boom. I'm gonna let that sit. Nice. Cool. And the lines are still nice and taut, so we can start our stows. So what I'm gonna do is just start bringing it in, and I'm gonna do nice big circles first, figure 8 circles, and look at the hand movement that I'm doing, right? I'm bringing my left, take my right hand up, and bring it on top. And I kind of stagger them forward. And the reason you do that is because you don't want any of them overlapping on top of each other. Okay, so we're just gonna keep going here. We're bringing it up. Yeah, this is fun, isn't it? When we get to this last bit, this is gonna just get as close as we can so that we can at least start to close the tail pocket. And we are going to gently close the tail pocket on top of the Velcro. Now what we wanna make sure is that the lines are not getting stuck in the Velcro, right? So as we close these up, we're doing just little checks on the side here that the lines are not going on top of any of that Velcro. Cool. Okay, now we're gonna take this clamp off and we're gonna put these out just a little bit, get those seated. And you can see we are now ready to start placing this guy in the rig. Okay. Now I'm gonna grab my handy dandy power tool. You can also use any type of closing lace, and I'm just going to get that prepared. Again, I'm doing the faceplate, and there are other methods, and I'll link those with Squirrel's videos that go through the top flap, but everybody again has their own opinions. So I'm going to bring this power tool, just bring it to the front. Now, once again, I'm just making sure everything is nice and flat. And this is the worst part because it kind of gets a little messy, but you try your best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my arms through the top of the straps. I'm going to grab all of the tail pocket, and I'm going to move this right into the rig, right? It's kind of a one fell swoop. And what I'm doing here is I'm grabbing the top of essentially where your shoulders go, and I'm just moving that up and moving that up. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at those as well, because we want to make sure the straps are not twisted once again, right? So I'm kind of going under here. I like to put my handles inward, but they're now sitting nice on the edge on one side. I'm gonna get to the other side, and you can just lift it up a tiny bit, and I'm just taking my hand, putting them right on top of each other, right? Okay, and right in the corners. Cool. It just takes time. Takes a number of pack jobs to be able to keep it clean, but overall we are ready for our next step. So now we're going to start reducing it, and because this is a faceplate, the faceplate closing loop is about right here, so I'm going to actually fold it a little bit more than I would as if it was in the top flap. So I'm going to take the top here, get it nice and small. I'm going to put a little dent there, and I'm going to fold this guy right over. Sweet. Okay, I'm going to get the pilot chute out of the way. And so what you can see, again, you can get a check, make sure these aren't twisted, and it's right where it needs to be. Super good. We're now going to start prepping the nose. So the nose, we should have 7 again, and we're going to do 3 on each side for these folds here. So we're going to get 1, 2, 3. Okay. And what I like to do is make sure these are nice and symmetrical, and then we're going to do a half fold on top of itself, and then one more fold and put the clamp right out here. This middle cell will come to in a moment, but we're going to do the left side. 1, 2, 3. I like to count them separately. Some people will do them all in one fell swoop. Doesn't hurt to be extra cautious. And essentially what this is going to prime us for, fold on itself, fold over. It's going to prime for the center cell to be the first thing that inflates, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm getting this thing prepared to be the first thing that inflates so that this canopy comes out straight. Because what I don't want is for it to go that way or that way. I want it straight. All right, now we're going to fold the final fold. We're going to go back to where those clamps are. We're going to cut right at the bottom or the tail of the rig, and a nice fold over itself, right? And we're just making sure everything stays nice and symmetrical and clean. Okay, cool. All right, I think we are ready to start removing the clamps. So we're going to remove this right one, and I'm going to start folding this up and then just put my knee right here. And I'm going to go to this left one, same deal. Okay, cool. So with this top skin, we're going to do a nice fold with the excess just right over itself, essentially to where this top flap can go over it. All right, and you can see our power tool is right there. And then for the bridle, I'm just going to start shimmying that right up the middle here so that we can bring this power tool, and it takes a little bit of finagling, right? Bring this power tool closing loop into a place where we can close the rig. So You can see I'm having to do some massaging because we want this to be free and clear as it comes into the top flap. All right, so we're going to bring this top flap over and we're going to start closing it up. And you can see there's some fabric coming through, so once again I'm making sure no fabric comes through. All right, closing it down. And for squirrel rigs, we start with the right flap first after we do the top flap. And notice, a very important thing is that the bridle is coming out through the middle. It's not wrapped around the top here. So you want to make sure this bridle is out in the middle. Okay. This left flap, kind of massaging, making sure it can go in, go through. Okay. And we're gonna get our first one here. Okay, now for the closing loop. So there's a little bit of a technique, and for the squirrel rigs, you want your closing pin facing to the right, a sad face to the right, or a happy face to the right, however you look at it. So I have both points here. Right, here we go. The eyelet and the tip facing to the right. I remove my closing loop. I'm going to get that set on the bottom here. And I'm going to get ready to do the bottom one. And same deal, we're going to go through that right flap first. Make sure no fabric is getting caught in the way. And then we're going to go to the left one. Okay. Boom. Okay. Now, for the bottom one, a really important piece is, again, we're making sure that tip is facing to the right. Right? So, when I remove, what we should see is that there's full free and clear. We have the bridle coming out through the middle. It's not wrapped around the top. Okay. And I have a nice fold here, so I can now fold that under. It goes nicely down to the bottom pin, facing to the right. And this bottom pin is free and clear, right? I have full clarity. Now, pin tension is super important. And the first time you're packing, you're gonna wanna make sure that you look at your pin tension. So you should honestly pack 10 times before you go jump it for the first time and test your different pin tension. What you want is to be able to essentially move the rig. Now I'm on grass, so it's not, but you should be able to slightly move the rig just by pulling that in that way. Otherwise it's too loose. But the other thing is you don't want it too tight. So you got to find the happy medium. So what we're going to do is we're going to close this main flap, close that top flap, and we're going to go to the pilot chute. So for the pilot chute, I'm going to do a single bite fold here, one more down into this pocket, right? And again, it's free and clear. It's not wrapped around that bottom pin. And then we're going to just make sure this is nice and straight, okay? Give it a little whapa, you know, for good measure. And we're going to lay it down. Boom. And what I like to do is get it right to the edge of the pilot chute, fold that mesh over itself, and start reducing the bridle right on top of each other. Cool. And we're going to leave a little bit extra just because we're going to shove this in there. So I try to give it a little bit of space there. And we're going to start to put this bridle right on top of itself. All right, so we're giving some nice bulk in here. Now from here, I'm going to fold the other side of the pilot chute. I'm going to grab it from the top and start to condense this, right? And I do a little fold here, get my finger there, and shove that guy in there, into the BOC, okay? You can see it was a little short, but we are now good, okay? Then we'll go to the front here. The flaps on top, and we have a packed rig for slider off. I'll do a nice little press, get the canopy nice and flat. And the last thing we want to do is check for all of our tools, right? So we have all of our clamps. None of the clamps are in the rig. We have the power tool, and we're ready to jump. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. See you on the next jump. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna link 2 great videos, one from Squirrel and one from Lemming's Base, that will show you how to do this pack job. This is my pack job, right? It's my opinion, it's what works for me. Everybody's different. So get out there, start packing, practice, 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 and enjoy your jumps. Later.